Dala Dhawa Jibe Dra Nopar Jibe Gek Tarba Dan Tamje Kembe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Jeki Zu Jibe Ma Nangka Dang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Tang Ten Tungyao Dang Zhe Nirdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Topara Jo Dala Dhawa Jibe Dra Nopar Jibe Ge Tarba Dan Tamje Kempe Bardu Chopara Jeba Tam Jeki Su Jibe Ma Nangka Dang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dunya Dan Dre Nirdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Topra Jo Dala Dhawa Jibe Dra Nopar Jibe Ge Tarpa Dan Tamje Jimpe Bardu Chopra Jeba Tam Jeki Su Jibe Ma Nangka Dang Nyampe Senchen Tamje Dewa Dan Den Dunya Dan Dre Nirdu Lana Me Pa Yang Dabra Sobe Chanju Rinpoche Topra Jo De Je Du Sama Geki Bardu Longa Yisum Gewala Ko Mashi Bardu Longa Yisum Gewala Ko Du Tering Ne Sunten Hema Chanta Samki Bardu Longa Yisum Gewala Ko Sonje Jodan Soge Jonam La Chanju Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dage Jinsu Kibe Sonang Ke Drola Penje Sanje Drubrashu Sonje Jodan Soge Jonam La Chanju Bardu Dane Kyabsu Je Dage Jinsu Kibe Sonang Ke Drola Penchir Sanje Drubrashu Sanje Choda Soke Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dhane Kyabsu Chi Dage Jinsu Kipe Sonang Ke Drola Penchir Sanje Drubrashu Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyundan Dempra Gyurji Dungyao Tang Dungyao Ki Gyudang Drewa Gyurji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dhamme Drewa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Drewe Tangyam La Nyapra Gyurji Manang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dan Dewe Gyudan Tempra Gyurji Dungyao Tang Dungyao Ki Gyudang Drewa Gyurji Dungyao Mebe Dewa Dhamme Drewa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Drewe Tangyang La Nebra Gyurji Mhanang Kadang Nyampe Senchen Tamche Dewa Dang Dewe Kindan Tempra Gyurji Dungyao Dang Dungyao Ki Gyudang Drewa Gyurji Dungyao Mepe Dewa Dhamme Drewa Gyurji Nering Chadang Nidang Drewe Tangyang La Nebra Gyurji. Then now, the sevenfold puja. In all the worlds of the 10 directions reside Tathagatas of the 3 times. Before each of you, lions among humans, I prostrate joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of this aspiration to noble deeds, all conquerors appear vividly in my mind. With as many bodies as there are atoms in all lands, I prostrate To all you conquerors, in each atom are Buddhas numberless as atoms, all in the midst of the heirs of the Buddhas. Thus I conceive of this Dharma Dhatu as completely filled with you conquerors in this way, with infinite oceans of praise and oceans of diverse melodies. I sing the excellent qualities of all you conquerors and praise all of you gone to bliss. With the best flowers and best garlands, best music, ointments, and excellent parasols, finest lamps and superior incense I offer to you conquerors. With excellent garments and best fragrances and sandalwood powder heap high as Mount Meru, all wondrous offerings perfectly arranged I offer to you conquerors. These vast and unequal offerings to each and every one of you conquerors. With the power of conviction in noble deeds I prostrate and offer to all you conquerors. All the harmful deeds that I have done with my body, speech, and mind, under the power of desire, hatred, and ignorance, I confess each and every one of them. I rejoice in all the meritorious deeds of all conquerors in the 10 directions, and the heirs of the Buddha, solitary realizers, hearers still in training and beyond, and all wandering beings. You who are lamps of the worlds of the 10 directions, who have unobstructedly attained Buddhahood through the stages of Bodhi. All you who are my protectors, please turn the unexhaled wheel of Dharma. With palms together I earnestly beseech you who may intend to manifest final nirvana. Please remain for as many eons as there are atoms in the world, for the happiness and well-being of all wandering beings. Whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. This ground sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers, adorned with the supreme mountain, fog, continent, sun, and moon, I experience as the Buddha land and offer it. May all wandering beings experience such a pure land. To the Gurus who possess the 3 kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and thusness offerings. With my body, wealth, and all phenomenal existence, please grant the unsurpassed supreme attainment. Whatever slight virtue I may have gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate it all to complete awakening. Om Guru Deva Dakini Rana Mandala Pratitya Soha. Please turn the wheel of Dharma of the greater, lesser, and common vehicles in accordance with the dispositions and mental capacities of sentient beings. Doji Chanchen Tele Naro Dharma Mida Popa Doji Den Kunga Den Sun Den Savela Mesha Sajo Lama Yidam Chogyong La Sowa De Sodaki Jinji Lo Kyab Dengi No Me La Sam Ling Ken Chope Do So Nyong La Kyab So Me Kya Wa Doji Chang Pa Ji Den Kumpa Shabla Du Tatu Sang Gyo Kyo Le Me Jinji Lo Shi Tu Jinji Dengi Mo Pesa Ne Kyang Sim Tu De Du Dobra Jinji Lo Hong Jin Yu Jin Na Chang Sang Pe Ma Kye Sa Tong Po La Ya Sen Chogyong Wa Dum Nye Pe Ma Ju Ne She Shu Do Ko Dum Kan Du Ma Pukora Keki Jese Da Du Ge Jinji La Ji She Su So Guru Pe Ma Se De Ho Me Chogi Yi Ki Buddha Ne Tu Sun San Ji Kun Jing Go Wen Ye Ran Sen Chu Gung Gun Sun Ton Se Ba Za We La Me Sha La So Wa De. So good morning and good evening to everyone. So let me say a little bit about the Mandala Offering. Last time I mentioned, I spoke briefly about the meaning and the significance when we say that we offer a mandala. Especially we offer a mandala to express our enthusiasm, to express our feelings about how precious the Dharma is, and to say that we are offering this mandala in order to receive these teachings. So last time I talked about the mandala that is the outer aspect, which is this world or this universe that we live in, we experience. It says in the words of the Mandala Offering, I will experience this. Often translated as I visualize, but really the meaning is like, I will experience this to be pure, to be pristine like a Buddha land. And so then I offer this pure experience. By pure, what we're talking about is meaning free from, especially the 8 worldly concerns. Experiencing this world, this universe, experiencing our existence free from the 8 worldly concerns. Of course, right now, we don't experience our world this way, but we're trying. So then, to whatever degree we are able to relate to experience this world free from the 8 worldly concerns, to that degree, we offer this. Only when we offer this world in this way, can it really then plant the seed, create the seed for other beings being able to experience their world, their universe in the same way. Can Leonard or someone out there provide in the chat the list of the 8 worldly concerns? I don't have to repeat that. Another way of saying experiencing our world, experiencing our existence free from the 8 worldly concerns. Another way to say that is to whatever degree that we can experience this world, experience our existence free from self-grasping, free from fixating on self. The second level of this mandala that we offer now comes closer to home, so to say. This home that is our body. This home that is our body, right? So this is often called the inner aspect of the mandala that we offer. So the Mandala Offering verse says, "This ground sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers." In the outer is referring to this ground, means this great earth. So now, what is the great earth in relation to this body? Our skin. Our skin covers our entire body. So that is the great earth. Sprinkled with scented waters and strewn with flowers means clean. Clean, smelling fresh. Then it says, adorned with the supreme mountain and four continents. Then, this is the supreme mountain. The body and the head is the supreme mountain. Four continents are 2 hands and 2 legs. Those are the supreme mountain and 4 continents. And then it says, and sun and moon. Then sun and moon is the 2 eyes. So these are the 7 elements specifically mentioned in the short Mandala Offering verse. So this is the inner mandala. So meaning now, to whatever degree we can experience this body without self-grasping, without 8 worldly concerns, that we offer as well. Of course, now we still have grasping, we still have fixation. So a method to overcome that self-grasping and fixation, that grasping towards this body and fixation towards this body, is to precisely train now in giving it up. Now here, giving it up for the sake of obtaining the liberating Dharma. So now let's see if there are any questions regarding this Mandala offering. And so often a mudra, is done. So like this, yeah. So these, this is the supreme mountain, okay? These four are the four continents. But don't try too hard and get stuck, Then when you get stuck, you cannot even use your phone to call for help because both your hands are... You got to use your tongue to press your phone. Then you might see, people who have like a mala. So these are like all representing all the jewels, all the wonderful things that is placed on this mandala and offered. And place at the heart, in front of the heart, when we offer. Then we release the mudra, this way. So kind of like inwards and then out. Yeah. So even this, you can think, as you release inwards, you receive the blessings of the offering, and then that blessings is shared with all. The blessings, the merit is shared with all. So now let us go to Shantideva, chapter 6, patience. So today we will start this section that Khenpo Kumpel say it's practicing Kshanti by kind of you know, developing, practicing means developing, cultivating Kshanti by kind of reflecting on and looking more closely at the kind of unreasonable ways in which we do the opposite, we get angry. And seeing the unreasonable nature of that makes whatever frustration that we are feeling less heavy, more light. So he actually says this is by making light what used to be so heavy. This section. So this is verse 34 to 51. So I will try to chant this section as the other translation rooms read this section. If things could be according to their wish, no suffering would ever come to any one of all embodied beings, for none of them wants pain of any kind, yet carelessly, all unaware, they tear themselves on thorns, and ardent in pursuit of wives and goods, they starve themselves of nourishment. Some hang themselves or leap into the void, take poison or consume unhealthy food, or by their evil conduct bring destruction on themselves. For when affliction seizes them, they even slay themselves, the selves they love so much. So how can they not be the cause of others' bodily distress? Although we almost never feel compassion for those who through defilement bring about their own perdition, what purpose does our anger serve if those who are like wanton children are by nature prone to injure others? There's no reason for our rage. It's like resenting fire for being hot. And if their faults are fleeting and contingent, if living beings are by nature mild, it is likewise senseless to resent them. As well be angry at the sky when it is full of smoke, although it is their sticks that hurt me. I am angry at the ones who will them, striking me, but they in turn are driven by their hatred. Therefore, with their hatred, I should take offense in just the same way. In the past, it was who injured living beings. Therefore, it is right that injury should come to me. Their torturer, their weapons, and my body, both are causes of my torment. They, their weapons, I, my body brandish. Who then is more worthy of my rage? This body running sore in human form, merely touch it cannot stand the pain. I'm the one who grabs it in my blind attachment. Whom should I resent? When pain occurs, we who are like children shrink from pain, but love its causes. We hurt ourselves through our misdeeds, so why should others be the object of our rage, and who indeed should I be angry with? This pain is all my own contriving. Likewise all the janitors of hell and all the groves of razor trees, those who harm me rise against me. It is my karma that has summoned them, and if through this these beings go to hell, it is not I who bring their ruin. Because of them and through my patience, all of my sins are cleansed and purified, but they will be the ones who, thanks to me, will have the long-drawn agonies of hell. Therefore I am their tormentor, therefore it is they who bring me benefit. Thus with that perversity, pernicious mind, will you be angry with your enemies? If a patient quality of mind is mine, I shall avoid the pains of hell. But though indeed I save myself, what of my foes? What fate's in store for them? If I repay them harm, wherefore harm indeed they'll not be saved thereby. My conduct will in turn be marred, austerity or patience brought to nothing. So the translators for this particular edition, this particular translation, have actually taken into consideration the ability to chant this text. It's two main people that worked on this translation. The woman, both of them, I think, did like many long time ago, under supervision of, I think, Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche. They did 3-year retreats. Then after that, the woman, I think, first translated from Tibetan rather strictly into English. Then the man, who has a strong background, I think they're English or Scottish, I don't remember, something like that. So then the man then translated, kind of edited that into the English that we have, and then made many revisions. If I remember correctly, the man was a Jesuit priest. I think. Verse 34, yeah? If things could be according to their wish, no suffering would ever come to any of all embodied beings, for none of them wants pain of any kind. Yeah? So if we reflect on this, and this is kind of continuing from the verse before that says, whether friends or enemies, whether we like them or we don't like them, when we see them acting in the ways that we recognize to be productive of suffering for themselves, for others, the last thing that is helpful, meaning not helpful at all, is then for us to get upset when we see that. And so then continuing from there, it says, because, even if they act in that way, it's not as if they acted in that way because they say, I want to create suffering, because nobody really wants to create suffering. So that's not anyone's nature to want to create suffering. It's because of circumstances that circumstances are such that we either forget, what are the causes of suffering and what are the causes of happiness, or we feel that we don't have any choice. And therefore, even when we recognize these are causes of suffering, we think, maybe if I do this, since I don't have any other choice, it can somehow relieve me of my suffering. So even that, even when people are engaging in causes of suffering, is based on them wanting to be free from suffering. So from Buddhas all the way to beings in the hell realms, actually, they were all motivated by the same thing, which is not wanting suffering. But some end up being Buddhists, and many end up in the hell realms. So the difference is not, that the so-called beings in the hell realms want suffering and Buddhas want happiness. Actually, they both were motivated by not wanting suffering, wanting happiness. But what led to those beings becoming Buddhas, attaining Buddhas, is knowing how to handle this wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. Skillfully, they develop the necessary conditions to be freed from suffering and to achieve happiness. Whereas those beings that end up in the hell realms don't know that, did not do that. So later, Shantideva will say, like, we all want happiness, but the way we behave is as if, we have kind of We have a vendetta against happiness because the way we behave is we go left and right destroying the causes of happiness. It's like we have a grudge against ourselves. And we don't want suffering, in fact. But again, Shantideva says, but the way we behave is as if, we can't get enough of it. It's like you can watch yourself in slow motion, heading into yet another experience of suffering. Actually, if you can do that, it's very good already. Because until now, you cannot even see slow motion or fast motion. that you are like headed towards suffering. So then, 35, 36, he's giving examples of how we ordinarily, would create suffering, even though what we want is happiness. So 35, he says, yet carelessly, all unaware, they tear themselves on thorns. Thorns. So we get injured left and right, by these thorns, these things that, prick us. So it doesn't have to be literally, but metaphorically, right? We get ourselves, we keep insisting without proper protection to go into thorny places and then get injured. In pursuing for life partners, husbands, wives, boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever friends, in pursuing for stuff, we even starve ourselves of nourishment. Yeah, worrying about our stuff, wanting to please someone that we desire, we lose sleep, we lose food, we lose appetite. Good. 36, and 37, basically, he says, we will even go to the degree of killing ourselves, harming ourselves in that way, out of, frustration of not achieving the objects of our desire. It is to that degree that we are even going to harm ourselves. And his point here is
So how much more, how much easier that we might, harm others in achieving our desires. That's the point of this section. It says like we would even destroy ourselves due to frustration of not reaching the object of desire. So what else to say, about harming others in order to reach our objects of desire? Of course, here he's not saying, that this is justified or this is will do. He's showing the absurdity of the situation. And more to the point here is, it's a strategy for us to remember this when we see someone causing us harm or attempting to cause us harm. Don't immediately retaliate or demonize them, but to say, this very same people who are attempting to harm me now, in order to reach their goal of not experiencing suffering, they would even harm themselves. So that they are harming me now, it's not so unthinkable. And so this is a stance that we should have, he says, when faced in this situation. Now, nowhere does he say, don't protect yourself from being harmed. Of course, this is mind training. Externally, maybe you have kung fu, Hui! But don't get upset, is what he's teaching here now. See, ordinarily, we have been habituated with the kind of response that, when we perceive someone doing something that is harming our interest, we immediately take it very personally, In some ways, maybe we suspect, and I think here is what's going on. In some ways, we suspect, maybe I deserve it. But then immediately we say no. So part of that psychology there, when someone does something to try to harm us, I think on some level we have some suspicion. Maybe I deserve this. And this is the part about why disciplined conduct is so important. Because whenever we have caused harm in the past, that memory is there, so that when harm comes to us, immediately, on one level, we are reminded. But then because our self-grasping, ego-grasping is so strong, instead of seeing that and say, oh yeah, that's why this is happening, we immediately push it off, retaliate, and say, no, this is not justified. Then we take it very personally. Not only that, because that's not enough. We now have to start a story about how bad this person is, how unreasonable this person is, how ridiculous this person is, all of that. Shantideva is teaching us not to be reactionary. So 38, he says, although we almost never feel compassion for those who through defilement bring about their own perdition, what purpose does our anger serve? Like if, we can watch, how people create suffering for themselves, even if we know they don't want that suffering. And when we see that, not only do we not have compassion, usually, but on top of that, we get angry. And his point here is, why get angry? Because when you get angry in this situation, you're not helping that person. And you're not understanding that person's situation, and you're also not helping yourself. So he asks, well, what purpose does this anger serve? So he's pointing to the pointlessness of wasting energy. Uh, 39, he will give some analogies, some examples. He says, if those who are like, kind of wanton children, that means childish beings, like children, by nature are prone to injure themselves. He says, if, he's saying if. He's not saying, that we are by nature like evil or bad, that we are going to injure ourselves, we're going to injure others. He's just saying, if you say, no, this person by nature, he by nature, he injures others. He says, okay, if that's the case, he says, then what's the point of you getting angry? Because he says, this is like resenting fire for being hot. It says, if, you do, the nature of fire is hot, don't stick your hand in the fire. On Facebook, there's some, kind of stories circulated, true or not true, who knows? It doesn't matter. It makes the same point, the story about like, some person, like rescued a snake that was, otherwise would die. And then in the process of rescuing the snake, bites him. Then, but he doesn't, kill the snake. And someone else says like, oh, why didn't you do that? And he said, it's the nature of the snake to respond that way when it perceives a threat. Even if I am trying to save it, it doesn't know that. So for me to get angry, that's just denying the nature of the snake. Then the next one, he says, now, verse 40, right? He says, now, if it is not by nature. So again, he's like, hypothetically, he says, you might think that by nature, these people are like this. The opposite scenario is verse 40. Now, if their faults are fleeting and contingent, meaning based on situation, and that by nature they are actually mild, not like angry, hurtful, violent. Then he says it's also pointless then to resent that, because that is like resenting when the sky has smoke. The point there being, sky ordinarily would not have smoke, but temporarily due to conditions, smoke might come, or clouds might cloudy up, or mist, the kind of mist or fog that prevents you from being able to see, to be able to drive. It says no point resenting that, because this is just due to causes and conditions coming together. Then this situation has arisen. No matter how upset you are, even if you are so motivated by, but I don't want people to die in accidents caused by this fog. Well, stop driving when you cannot see. 41 is another kind of Shantideva classic. It says, it is their sticks that hurt me. If, when someone beats you, it is actually their sticks that hurts me. But, reasonably, I'm angry at whoever is holding that stick, not at the stick. It says, okay, great, that is very sensible. So therefore, then he says, but they, in turn, the people holding the sticks, who's holding them? Their hatred is holding them. Afflictive emotions is controlling them in the same way that they are controlling the stick. So Shantideva says, if you're not angry at the stick, because you say, a stick by itself is not going to come beat me. It's Antonio, or Joyce, that picked up the stick to beat me. So now I'm angry at Antonio or Joyce. And then Shantideva said, no, not yet. Can you see that they, something else is holding them? What's holding them? Their hatred. And so he says, if you want to get offended, if you want to take it personally, take it up with their afflictive emotions, not with them. In the complaint form, you've got to fill in, afflictive emotions. Can someone submit this to whoever is in charge of afflictive emotions? So basically, it's like those pointless, complaint boxes in many governments in many countries. Nobody reads them; they'll be shredded. Okay, so let's take a quick break and then we'll come back. Yeah.
Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware 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 Om Wage Jware Mum Wage Jware
So let's see if there are questions, comments. what we covered so far today, or from previous days, or yes, Kathy?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I have a basic question about anger and whether Shantideva is going to address this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an expert at repressing anger.
Mm-hmm.
I often don't realize I'm angry. I have no awareness of it until something comes out of my mouth that has an edge on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I suddenly realize, oh, I'm angry.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could make the distinction between repressing and, I've forgotten his vocabulary, but early on in this chapter, he talked about seizing it and crushing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I think you're not the only one. But go ahead, the interpreters, go ahead and translate the question. Yeah, so you are not the only one. I think many of us have this kind of repressed anger. Culturally, too, I suspect that women have been taught to do that more than men, I think. Yeah, this world, the way they divide things, as a man, especially maybe not kids that have been raised now, but many of us, also come from a general culture where the man should be assertive, right? So men tend to have, generally speaking, this loud kind of anger. Then women maybe tend to have this kind of silent kind of anger. So I've talked about this in previous, whether loud or not loud, they are all based on the definition of anger in the most subtle form is not accepting or not being able to stay with, not being able to accept what is. What is. So Shantideva doesn't directly go into those more subtle types of anger, but everything he says is based on a prior understanding of the necessity to go deep down and see these underlying layers of confusion.
Dr. Lai,
yeah, go ahead, Waiting. Now I can hear you. I wasn't able to hear earlier. Yes. Say that again, like what? Mm-hmm. What did you hear last? Yes, so Shantideva don't directly go into addressing like this more subtle types of anger that the question was asking about. He addresses the more obvious kind of anger, but nonetheless, everything that he says is based on an understanding of like the more subtle layer of anger. And the importance of recognizing that. Is definitely emphasized. And so then, so again the broader, not necessarily addressed by Shantideva, is but the broader understanding, or what we should know, is that then like what is covered in those two chapters, chapter 4 and 5, carefulness and vigilant introspection, they are specifically, carefulness and vigilant introspection directed towards paying attention to more and more subtle layers of the kleshas. Now, this has to be done, I would say, with spacious mind. Otherwise, it becomes very oppressive. It can become very claustrophobic. And I see this again and again, especially with maybe because, like the last 30 years I'm in the US. I don't know what's going on that much in Malaysia these days. But I see it, like very strongly among Western Dharma students. That without that spaciousness, you want to do well, understandably, very admirable, actually. In fact, many Tibetan teachers, when they go back after visiting the West, they will say, to their students there, you all need to be more serious. These Western students, they are so serious. But that's sometimes part of the problem. Very serious. Then it becomes so tight cannot be sustained. You will explode. So the spaciousness is really important. And this, in another kind of vocabulary, we talk about devotion. Devotion opens the heart. And in traditional Buddhist countries, that devotion is cultivated through acts of devotion. Maintaining a shrine, because it reminds you of the presence of the Buddhas. Cleaning shrine, making offerings in the shrine, planting flowers with the intention that I can harvest the flowers and put on the shrine. From kids, my mom, whenever we go travel somewhere, she is thinking, not in a very rigid way either, it's like, oh, fruits, special fruits that we buy, we offer at the family shrine. Whatever special things people give us, she immediately puts on the family shrine. This is kind of part and parcel of a more kind of, simple and yet accumulating over time, this spaciousness that I'm talking about here. So now let's come back 42. Yeah? This section, again, we should be careful. Like 42, it says, in the same way that in the past I've injured other living beings. So now if any injury comes on me, I should not feel so outraged. I should see it as, well, I surely have injured other beings in the past. So why should I be, why should I expect no injury? So be careful, right? 42, he's not saying you deserve it. I know, like we tend to have that kind of psychology, like, you mean I deserve it? Or maybe, when something happened to us, as kids, somehow the grown-ups say, well, you deserved it, This is not Shantideva's tone. Yeah. Shantideva's tone, Shantideva's point is, you use this to train yourself. Don't use this to like guilt yourself or anything of that sort. But if no choice, injury has already happened, harm has already happened, rather than not accepting and resenting and becoming bitter and becoming angry, you should just understand and say, well, I'm not, blameless in terms of having caused harm. So naturally, this has come back. And so then it's okay. So he elaborates, he says, their weapons, my body. So these are the causes and conditions necessary for the pain to be felt. So both are causes of my misery. Their stick and my body. So when the stick meets the body, those two have to be present, So then he says, so they are holding their weapon, I am holding my body. Then he says, why only be angry at the stick that they're holding? What about the body that I'm holding? I am sure Shantideva is not recommending, that you go about, inviting people to beat you. Or not get out of the way when someone is trying to beat you. No, he's making a point. He's making a point to help us, work with those situations where you cannot escape. It's already happening. Yeah. So then he says, look deeper. Don't immediately react. Consider all the different kind of points, and don't take it personally. So 44, he says, this body, a sore, a running sore, that means a continuous sore, like an open wound, but taking a human form. Merely touch, it cannot stand the pain. Now, he's not saying you should feel this way. He's saying there are times, when we feel like that, if it is like someone we really don't like, we really resent, even if they just like bump into us, it feels like, they are like stabbing us with knife, right? But someone that we like really a lot, even if they accidentally stab us, we're like, it's okay. They didn't mean it, right? So it's about perspective. Yeah. So he says, merely touch, we cannot stand the pain. But you see, he says, I'm the one who grasps this as my body. So if I hold very tightly to my body, and that person holds very tightly to their weapon, then tightly held weapon meets tightly held body, suffering, pain, resentment, anger. We who are like children shrink from pain, but love its causes. Verse 45. So it is said, confused sentient beings are afraid of effects, not afraid of causes. Bodhisattvas are afraid of causes and not so afraid of effects. This statement sounds kind of simple, but it's really profound, as in it has a lot to teach us. We have to move from this fearing results, effects, more and more in the direction of fearing, healthy fear of causes. We are only upset. We're upset at the wrong thing. We're upset at the effect. Too late. Once causes have been created and conditions have arrived, it's too late to be upset with the results. So, to cultivate the Bodhisattva path, we have to pay attention more to causes. And so we hurt ourselves through our misdeeds. So fundamentally, he says, that's how we hurt and harm ourselves. So then why should others be the object of our anger and resentment? No point. "46, 47, he says, basically our own negative karma, unskillful actions have caused all these problems. So he says, and who indeed should I be angry with? This pain is all my own contriving." Okay, you have to understand the psychology in part of the audience is talking to. Again, these monks, right, in 9th century India. Tough guys. So he is, talking to them, and he says, hey, if you're going to get angry with your afflictive emotions. So he says, this pain is all my own contriving. Yeah. Again, I don't think, Shantideva's audience suffer so much from low self-esteem, blaming themselves. I think his audience is all like, you. Yeah, at the drop of the pin, go beat up someone, even monks. Remember translation boarding school, okay? I think in the 8th, 9th century, the overt suffering that people have to deal with is more like physical suffering. Yeah? Mental emotional is not so complex and complicated. These days, for us, mental emotional suffering is very complex and very complicated. Physical suffering has been reduced to next to nothing compared to, the past. Yeah, in the past, right, dropping dead at 50 is success. Yeah, people dying at 50, that's like, oh, wow, ripe old age. We tend to forget this, So for them, the way I think karma, suffering all occurs, right, it's much more on the physical overt level. And so he's addressing that, yeah. But again, whether he's addressing that or our circumstance now, the underlying points, it's all the same. And so here he says, all the pain you should be able to see is based on us having created them. So all the guardians of the hell realms and all the blades, these are descriptions of the kinds of suffering that exist in the hell realms. He says, where do you think they came from? No, they are not designed by some god or some, justice figure to punish you. They are the products of your own creation. So 47, those who harm me, rising against me, actually, I need to see that it is my negative karma that have, given them a call and say, hey, could you come over? We need to hang out. And then he says, and then because of that, and then they come and hang out, and cause suffering to me. Then because of that, they now have to suffer for having done something negative. Then he says, am I not to blame for causing that to them? Because my negative karma, recruited them. Yeah, of course, here Shantideva he's like pushing the issue, as we say. He, in the end, of course, we should also say, well, it's also their negative karma. If they didn't have that negative karma, no matter how much of my negative karma is attracting them, they will not come. Yes, of course, Shantideva understands that point. But here he wants to, again, have us kind of turn the way we normally react to people who we perceive as unfriendly and against our welfare. He's using any and all means, even slightly, you might say, ridiculous means. But I take it as, he has a sense of humor. He wants us to see the absurdity, basically, of getting angry and retaliating. 48 to 51, he's taking this to the next level. The next level is basically, he says, okay, now, if you are able to have patience in the face of suffering having turned up, then through this Kshanti, you can purify so much of your negative karma. Not only the negative karma that is ripening in the form of the suffering that has arrived, but on the basis of that, you can destroy karmic seeds, negative karmic seeds that have other negative karmic seeds that have been planted by generating bodhicitta towards those who are harming you, for those who are harming you. So he says, you should do that. And then while doing that, you should also generate further compassion and love for those who are harming you, because you should be able to see how they are in fact now very kind. Because my Dharma teachers, my gurus, give me the tools for changing my life, but my enemies give me the real circumstance for using these tools. So in fact, as grateful and as devoted I should feel towards the Buddha, towards those who are acting in the position of the Buddha, meaning my teachers, I should be even more grateful to these harm bringers, because they are actually giving me those circumstances to actually use the tools that I obtain, the tools that are obtained by offering outer mandala, inner mandala, secret mandala. Like, I'm so good at offering mandalas. I am so good at gathering all the tools. And then when the circumstance turn up for us to use the tools, we get angry at the circumstance. We say, how dare you? It's crazy, right? Crazy, but that's what we all do. So anyway, we should listen to these teachings. We should read these verses from Shantideva in a way that is taking them to heart, you know, rather than arguing with Shantideva. everything has their pros and cons, including, for example, the way in which a text like Bodhicharyavatara has been studied in the scholastic traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. So in the scholastic way of studying this, they take great pains in, kind of analyzing and expanding and kind of try to use, very detailed analysis and logic, There are strengths to that approach for sure. But if we don't understand that, that is not an end unto itself, then we can get caught up in simply having all this theoretical knowledge, but never really experiencing these teachings on the heart level. And then we make the mistake of relying on the words and sacrificing the meaning. Getting stuck in the words and sacrificing the meaning. So there is a 4-line from the words of the Buddha called the Four Reliances, which is, it begins with, don't get stuck on the teacher, but rely on the teachings. In other words, don't sacrifice the teachings and fixate on the teacher. Can become so distracting, when what we're following is some sort of personality cult. Whether a lot of people are following or not is even beside the point. Even just one person is following someone else like a personality cult, then you're stuck, So Buddha says, don't sacrifice the teachings because you get stuck on the teacher. Then with regards to the teachings, don't sacrifice the meaning because we got lost in the words. Then with regards to the meaning, don't sacrifice the definitive meaning, the final meaning, because we got lost in the temporary, situational explanations. And so as we see, when we study this text, there is the immediate context of who Shantideva is talking to, what he is addressing, and then there is a bigger underlying principle. So in terms of the meaning, of course, you need to know like what's on the surface in order to get deeper to the underlying principle. And so in terms of the meaning, it says, don't sacrifice this kind of definitive meaning for interpretable meaning. Those are technical terms. Then the fourth one is very advanced, but we should know a little bit about, but don't spend too much time thinking about it. The fourth one, he says, the Buddha says, then with regards to this like definitive meaning, don't sacrifice wisdom because we got lost in conceptual ideas about this final wisdom. So another way of putting it, to be free from samsara, to be free from confusion, we need to achieve right view. So there is right view, perfect view, which is this wisdom. That we need to achieve. But often we get lost in views about right view and don't even realize. That's what we're stuck with. Views about right view. And so whereas right view frees us from confusion, views about right views are based on this conceptual thoughts about right view. So don't get stuck in this conceptual thoughts, but rely on wisdom. That's the fourth. Yeah, so that's it for today. Just a reminder again, no classes this Saturday or next Saturday, but we will have class next Tuesday. I will be doing this class from Randolph College in Lynchburg, Virginia, where I will be together with 2 other lamas making a sand mandala for the college community to give them some exposure to Buddhism. Chanchu sem chorim poche ma ge pa nam ge gyu che ge pa nyam pa me pa yang go ne gong du be war shu. Okay, thank you so much. See you guys next week.
Thank you.
Ta.
Dr. Lee.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later.
Get up to me.